Hi, it's Kevin Thomas with the At Home Film Festival. This week I'm bringing you remakes, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The worst remake I've ever seen is at the very end, so wait for that. But I had so many choices. Even last night I'm editing my list down and I didn't get it far enough. So maybe next month I'll do a part two. In the meantime, I decided I'm not going to do superhero movies because they come out every few years with 3 or 4 of them, then they wait and reboot. So that could be a show on its own. I'm also not doing movies that became musicals because I kind of already did a lot of those, like Little Shop of Horrors and Cabaret. And then I thought another fun would be foreign language films that get Americanized. So that's in our future as well. But let's talk about today. Let's talk about movie remakes and what one should we watch and avoid from the cycle. So we've had in the last couple of years a lot of talk about A Star is Born. There have been 4 Star is Born, but there's really 5, so stay tuned. So the first Star is Born, 1937. This was not a musical. It was up for a bunch of Oscars with Janet Gaynor. Really good movie. I enjoyed it. It's good. So I would see this again. So I would recommend that A Star is Born. But my absolute favorite A Star is Born is the 1954 version, which was a musical with Judy Garland. I'm a big fan of Judy's. They all thought she'd win the Oscar for this. She didn't. She got nominated but didn't win. There's a little fight with the studio over this movie because director George Cukor, they thought it was too long, so the studio edited it, and years later it got restored, but some of the visuals were missing, so you only have sound with photographs. I didn't like that part of the restoration. I wish it all was intact, but I just think it was a nice try. But that made me think, wouldn't it be fun if one day on our own TV we could take edited parts out and make our own version that we want to watch at home? Think of that, Hollywood studios. Great way to get people more interactive. Another good A Star is Born is My Girl Barbra Streisand. This, at the time, was her biggest hit of all time at the box office. There was a lot of behind-the-scenes fight she had with the director, Frank Pearson, because her boyfriend, John Peters, produced it. Barbara, I guess, showed her power, but it doesn't matter. Whatever happened behind the scenes is what we're watching, and this was a really good movie. It brought Barbara more in the rock era, which was different than she'd ever done before, although Evergreen, which is her song, isn't really a rock, but I thought Chris Christopherson was very rocky, so this movie was really good, and I did enjoy it, but I still liked the Judy Garland better. I also really liked the one with Lady Gaga. People were so surprised what a good actress Lady Gaga was, and this is a perfect role for her, or really any actress, because of all 4 A Star is Borns, 3 of them were up for Best Actress and Actor, only the Barbra Streisand wasn't. And all 3 musicals were nominated for Best Song. In fact, the Barbara and the Lady Gaga version both won Best Song, and it was interesting that both Barbara and Lady Gaga co-wrote the song, so they didn't win Oscars for that song. But the real beginning of A Star is Born is a movie called What Price Hollywood. So this movie came out before the 1937 A Star is Born. In fact, the director of this, George Cukor, was asked to direct A Star is Born, but he said, no, I already did. Funny, years later, he did do the 1954 version. Maybe he doesn't say no to the paycheck. But in any event, this was Oscar nominated for Best Screenplay. It's got the similar story with a young aspiring actress and an actor on his way down. Yet they don't technically call it the original Star is Born, but it has the exact same story. So I'm going with the people to say it's the original, and originals are often better. That one's a little grittier for the 30s, so I really like that movie. One that has also been done many, many times, including recently, is Little Women. This was a silent movie twice. It's been a musical on Broadway, off Broadway. It's had several versions. So let's break them down. I really love the original talkie with Katharine Hepburn. It's hard not to really enjoy her. Then 10 years later or so, it was remade in color with June Allison, who's not my favorite actress, but she's pleasant. But she paled in comparison to Katharine Hepburn. So this is my least favorite Little Women, even though it was fun to see Elizabeth Taylor as a blonde, but still as a young girl. She's not quite a woman, she's not a girl, she's like in between, because she is a little woman after all, because it is Little Women. So for Elizabeth Taylor alone is a reason I would see this movie, and there she is as a blonde touching her hair. But then my favorite version is the Winona Ryder version, where, where Winona was up for an Oscar for Best Actress and also featured Susan Sarandon and look, a young Christian Bale. So this movie I thought was really good. It's my favorite Little Women if I'm going to watch the story over and over. But I also don't mind watching the Katharine Hepburn version or the more recent critically acclaimed and multiple Oscar-nominated Greta Gerwig version that just came out a couple years ago. This movie is also really good. I don't want to say anything bad about it, just my favorite was Winona Ryder. But if you want to keep following the Little Women story, follow that one. And a lot of these stories get done over because I think Shakespeare, and I've said this before, once said there's only 38 plots. So everything we see is derivative of those plots, like the women. I just did this a few weeks ago, so I'm not going to really talk more about the original The Women except for watch it. But if you want to compare it to other The Women movies, how about The Opposite Sex? This was a colorized version of The Women. Well, not colorized, it was filmed in color, with June Allison, once again, not my favorite, but the thing I like most about this movie is that Joan Collins is fitting in it. She really takes on the Joan Crawford part to, really be the seductress. This became a musical mistake, I think, because I don't really like any of the songs. I couldn't remember one of them except for the really terrible one sung by the sexy guy at the end, but I don't even remember that title. But then they thought, oh my God, we need to remake The Women again. So why don't we make it more contemporary, have Meg Ryan and Annette Bening and Jada Pinkett Smith and Deborah Messing from TV and do it. It was okay. I mean, if you're sitting at home, the remote's out of batteries, might as well watch it. But I wish the version that they almost did with Barbra Streisand and Bette Midler happened because that would have been a riot. Now, let's see what else we have in our remake world. Oh, another big period piece. I should have just stuck with Little Women, but I in love with the story of Pride and Prejudice. Once again, it's from a super old novel, so it's been made many, many, many times. My favorite, or one of my favorites, is the 1940 version with Greer Garson and Laurence Olivier. I thought it was lush and beautiful and witty and funny, and it's a reason enough for me to keep my eyes open on a Tuesday. If it happens to be on at midnight, I will force them open to watch it because it's really good. Then it was redone. Trying to stick to movies, but I do think that the Colin Firth miniseries was also really good. So if you happen to see that on BBC or PBS, watch it. But then they decided a couple years, maybe, well, more than a couple now, I can't believe how time flies. There was one with Keira Knightley. This was really good. Keira was up for an Oscar, quite enjoyable because this is a story that I've always loved. I always do like these old movies with people that live in castles. They're poor, but they still have housekeepers. How does that happen? But anyway, that was still a good version. Then they started making mistakes. They Americanized it as well as made it contemporary. And this version I would totally skip if you see this Pride and Prejudice. I'm already yawning just watching this preview. But when they wanted to add excitement to the franchise, I guess you can call these franchises, I happen to like when they did Bride and Prejudice. I featured that solely on an earlier show, but that really brought new life into it. It was super colorful. It had fun songs. It took place in India. Really good movie, sexy people, fun to watch. So this is a way to redo a movie. You add freshness to it. Don't just carbon copy the last one. Or you can do this. You could do Pride and Prejudice and zombies. That's right. We've got Elizabeth and all her family. They don't die. That's what happens in this one. But maybe that's really the story of these remakes, because you think the movie's over from 1940 and then they come back over and over again. Maybe all of these remakes are zombies. But this was a super fun twist on the tale that we've heard so many times. Now let's get away from these fun period pieces and let's get down to gritty. And when I'm saying gritty, I'm talking Scarface. The Al Pacino, Brian De Palma movie Scarface was super fresh. It was exciting. People loved it. It made a lot of money. The critics were behind it. It's been noted as one of Al Pacino's best performances. And yet, it was a remake. That's right. But the difference is they changed the setting, they changed the time period. They did it well where it seemed fresh, but yet, if you look up the old movie, The real Scarface, or the original Scarface, came out in the 1930s with Paul Muni. So same story really, but totally different setting. So it seemed like two fresh movies. And speaking of doing things over again freshly, we now have Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. I thought this movie was one of the funniest movies I'd ever seen. I still mean that. And it has Michael Caine and Steve Martin at the top of their comedic craft. Glenn Headley comes in and makes it fresh and funny. And while I'm watching this, I forgot that this fun, exciting movie, which became a Broadway musical, was originally a Marlon Brando, David Niven movie called Bedtime Story. That movie was okay, but the remake added excitement and freshness to it and made me feel it was all new instead of this more tired movie from the 1960s that's super dated. And then recently they tried the formula to change things around and do a version with Anne Hathaway and Rebel Wilson. What great casting. I was so excited to see this. This movie is one of the worst films of the year it came out. I'm very disappointed in this film, and I love both of them. So please, skip the hustle, which I think you did at the theater. When it comes on TV, don't watch it. But do look for the Michael Caine and Steve Martin one, because that is worth your time. Now let's talk about the little princess of remakes, because I'm now going to focus on Lindsay Lohan. She did two great movies in a row that were both remakes of Disney films, and both of her versions were really good. The only other thing she did of note was Mean Girls. But first we have The Parent Trap. I love the original Parent Trap, as we see here, with Haley Mills. And her father was Brian Keith, and her mother was the sexy Maureen O'Hara. And Joanna Barnes from Auntie Mame is the evil woman that tries to come between her parents. But anyway, this movie was so fun. I don't think you could ever make it better. But you can't, but you can make it just as good. Because years later, when little Lindsay Lohan was just a little girl, no one knew who she was, they really thought there were two actresses playing the American and the British little girls. This movie is fresh, and it's yet the exact same story. This time she's got Dennis Quaid and Natasha Richardson as her parents. Really enjoyable. I had so much fun with this movie. If I had to pick which Parent Trap I'd pick, I would feel like I'm in a trap, because I can't pick. Then Lindsay did Freaky Friday. Now the original had Jodie Foster and Barbara Harris. It was a good movie. I enjoyed it. It showed Jodie as a child, which we often don't see, because even Taxi Driver, where she was 13, she was more adult. But still a good movie. But I will say, in the Freaky Friday world, the Lindsay Lohan, Jamie Lee Curtis blew that one away. This movie is so much better than that one. It's fun, it's exciting, it's relevant, it's current. I just love this movie. It's very slapsticky, the family's cool. I would just love to watch Freaky Friday with Lindsay Lohan more than the other one. And we're gonna end now, for this time, with one of the greatest movies ever made, Psycho. This film was vibrant. It was so exciting, and for 1960, it got Alfred Hitchcock an Oscar nomination. You were told you can't go in the movie late because you're gonna miss something important. Everybody knows Psycho. Sometimes you should leave well enough alone, because years and years later, great director Gus Van Sant did probably the worst remake I've ever seen. It's called Psycho. It's in color. You'd think movies about blood would be better in color. Alfred caught more of the essence of fear and scariness with black and white. So when Gus Van Sant did it, he had a really good cast. Vince Vaughn, I think Julianne Moore was in it. But this movie pales, even though it's in color, it pales to the original Psycho. And although I saw it, I did read later it was shot scene for scene. I don't remember that. I just remember, why did you bother? Gus, why did you bother? So, bother, sorry. But anyway, I've got more remakes to tell you. Hopefully you'll do another show next month, but you give me some suggestions. Write to me below, subscribe. In the meantime, I will see you at the movies, and maybe sometimes 3 times, because they've been remade. See you then.